Elijah the prophet found himself in a difficult situation. King Ahab was after him. God had a special plan for Elijah. He led him to the brook Kerith. It was a place of peace and solitude. God took care of Elijah there. Every morning, ravens brought Elijah bread and meat. Every evening they came again. He had all he needed. The brook provided cool water to quench his thirst. Elijah must have felt God's love and protection in that peaceful place. He was safe and provided for. It was a season of rest and trust in God's provision. Life can change quickly. What is constant today may be gone tomorrow. This is what Elijah experienced. The once reliable brook began to dry up. The life-giving water slowed to a trickle. Soon there was nothing left but dry stones. This change was unsettling. Elijah had grown accustomed to God's provision at the brook. Now he faced uncertainty, but God had a new plan. He spoke to Elijah. "Go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. I have directed a widow there to supply you with food." Elijah had to trust God again. He had seen God's provision before, but now he was being asked to step out in faith once more. He left the familiar brook and journeyed to Zarephath, a place he had never been, trusting that God would guide his steps. He found the widow God had spoken of, just as God had promised. She was gathering sticks at the city gate, preparing for what she thought would be her final meal. This widow had very little, barely enough to sustain herself and her son. She was preparing her last meal, a meager portion of bread with the little flour and oil she had left. She planned to eat it with her son and then await their fate, believing there was no hope left. Yet even in her poverty, she had a heart to help others, showing compassion despite her own dire circumstances. Elijah asked her for some water, a simple request, but significant in her situation. He also asked her to bake him a small loaf of bread, a request that seemed impossible given her limited resources. He promised that God would provide for her, that her flour and oil would not run out. The widow could have refused, doubting the words of a stranger. She could have said, "I have barely enough for myself and my son, how can I give to you?" But she chose to trust God, believing in the promise of provision, and in doing so she witnessed a miracle. Unending provision. The widow welcomed Elijah into her home. She baked him the bread. True to God's word, her flour and oil never ran out. Throughout the drought, Elijah, the widow, and her son were fed. God miraculously provided for them. This miracle wasn't just about food, it was about faith and obedience. The widow's small act of faith unlocked God's abundant provision. This experience taught Elijah a powerful lesson. God's provision can come in unexpected ways. It requires us to step out in faith even when things seem impossible. Stepping out in faith. We all experience our own brooks of comfort, those serene places where life feels easy and predictable. These are times and places where we feel safe and provided for, surrounded by the warmth of family and friends. They could be good jobs that offer stability, loving relationships that bring joy, or comfortable routines that give us a sense of security. But what happens when the brook runs dry? When the comfort we once knew begins to fade away? What happens when God calls us to leave our comfort zones and step out in faith? It can be frightening, filled with uncertainty. We might feel uncertain and afraid, questioning our ability to move forward. We may wonder if God will really provide for us in this new, unknown territory. But just like with Elijah, God is faithful. He has shown time and again that he is trustworthy. He will never leave us nor forsake us. Even when the path ahead seems unclear, he has a plan, even when we can't see it. Trusting in his plan requires faith, but it also brings peace and assurance. Trusting the journey. Life is a journey of faith filled with unexpected twists and turns. There will be times of abundance where blessings overflow, and times of scarcity where we must rely on our faith to see us through. There will be moments of joy that fill our hearts with laughter, and seasons of sorrow that test our resilience. But through it all, God is with us. He is our provider, ensuring we have what we need. He is our protector, shielding us from harm. He is our guide, leading us through the darkest valleys and the brightest peaks. When we trust in him, we can face any challenge with courage and hope, knowing that we are never alone. So let us be like Elijah and the widow of Zarephath, who trusted in God's word and saw his miracles unfold. Let us step out in faith, even when the path seems unclear, trusting that God will light our way. Let us trust in God's provision, knowing that he will never fail us and that his blessings come in many forms. His love and grace are sufficient for all our needs, and his presence is a constant source of comfort and strength. We hope this video inspired you and reminded you of God's promises. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment, like the video, share it and subscribe so we can continue bringing moments of mercy. See you next time.